Evening, everybody, to our May Kentish Council meeting. I'd like to thank all the councillors for coming tonight and the staff that are here to support any decisions that are made. Thank you to the members of the gallery that have come out on a cold night to come to our meeting. So I'll start with number one, which is apologies and leave of absence. We have Councillor Haig, who had applied for leave of absence for tonight.
Just on that, Madam Mayor, I'm at the understanding that Councillor Haig has missed 3 council meetings in a row at the present. So how does that work under the Local Government Act? Because
she, thank you for the question, Councillor Blencorn, because she's applied for leave due to work commitments.
So how long can this go on? How many meetings can you just apply for leave of absence under the Local Government Act? I'm at the understanding that fail to attend 3 meetings in a row, you can actually forfeit your council seat, and you're meant to be here to represent the people.
Thank you for the question. She has applied for leave and the leave has been granted.
So how long can this be granted for? How many consecutive meetings can this leave be granted?
I'll ask the General Manager if...
I don't think there's actually a period of time that as long as you take leave and get it granted by council, which you did.
Which you did 3 times.
The item that you're referring to is if you're just an apology and you miss meetings. So where you take a leave of absence, then it doesn't fall into that act that you're referring to, part of the act.
Good, thank you for the question. So we'll go on to number 2, which is Declaration of Pecuniary and Conflict of Interest, the Local Government Act of 1993, section 48 to 51. I will ask any councillors if you have a pecuniary or conflict of interest in any item of the agenda, please fill in the form and hand it to Mrs Wilkinson, please. We'll go on to number 3. We've got the confirmation of minutes. I have a recommendation that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of the Kentish Council held at the Sheffield Town Hall, Sheffield, on the 15th of April 2025 be taken as read and confirmed. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Hughes, Councillor Dickinson. Are there any comments or questions about the minutes from the meeting on the 15th of April?
Yes.
Councillor Blencorn.
I've got some documents here that are statements that were read at the council meeting. Will they be tabled? Are they tabled on this meeting agenda?
They are statements, and that's not part of what we do when it's public question time. No, we've acknowledged the statements and we've replied to them, but no, they won't be tabled as questions. So,
okay, just on that, does other councils actually table statements? Do other councils?
I'm not aware that they do. From my conversation with other mayors and councillors, it's a public question time, and therefore it has to be a question, not a statement, not a platform to be able to give your opinion or a statement about an issue. It is purely for asking a question.
Thank you.
So, thank you, Councillor Blencorn. So we have a mover and a seconder. If there are no other comments or questions, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Aye. Anyone against? Thank you. That is carried. We shall go on now to number 4, presentations. We don't have any. Notice of motion nil, petitions nil. Response to questions raised at our prior ordinary council meeting. So I have a motion that says that the responses to the questions from Sam Ralph, Pip Rice, Robin Thomas, Andrew Stanley, Philip Durrell, Jim Crowley, Naomi Cooley and Cush Allison at the council meeting held on the 15th of April be received and noted. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Richards, Councillor Dickinson. So all those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. Public partition questions on notice. We don't have any questions on notice from the public. So we've got questions without notice from the public. And I will remind anyone that's here tonight that would like to ask a question, please give your briefing very, very short to support your question. And if the question is not appropriate for our council procedures, then I will be asking you to withdraw the question. So is there anyone in the gallery that would like to ask a question? So thank you, Mr. Ralph.
Sam Ralph, 3A Johnson Street, Sheffield. If I want to make a comment, I'll just put in the about what was passed by her with my question. Well, I've got to think here, I took out of the development application. It says from Warrawee to Lark Link summary, that was part, it was approved, the planning permit was approved by the Kentish Council. That's going into the Latrobe municipality, where you said to me that you can't do that. But when you passed the bike track, it went right back to Warrawee.
Right.
So I just thought that was interesting that you said that, but I will give you a copy of it. I copied it out of
Thank
the
you.
book. We've got a little problem with weeds up in the car park up at the gravel pit. And when they put the car park in, whether they brought the weeds there then or they come in afterwards, but there's a firm that's come up there and it's going down into the creek, it's going down along the edge of the road, to my block up there, and it's also going back down along the bike track. It's got down as far as where above the old rifle range. It's there on the bike track. And the name for the fern is a ruddy ground fern. It wasn't listed in the thing when they did what weeds and whatever else there was. So has council done an annual monitor of the bike track for the weeds to ensure weeds don't become a biosecurity risk? Because in the development application, they were required to do an annual thing of the weeds. So have they been done or not?
Thank you for your question. Our Greens manager, Sam Blackwood-Beattie, isn't here tonight, so I will have to take that question on notice. Thank you, Mr. Ralph, and we will get back to you. Thank you for your question. And it's Mr.
I'm just typing Sam.
Salmon. Thank you very much. Okay, is there anyone else from the gallery who would like to ask a question? Thank you. Would you like to say your name and what you want to ask your question about?
Hey, good evening. My name is Jo Ross. I'm representing the Wilmot community. How do I go about presenting or notifying the council of a pending petition that we want to present?
Right, perhaps you might like to answer that to Mrs. Ross.
There should be a form online here to guide you through the process for that. Have you had a look at that?
I've been through a lot of the website. I didn't come across it, but maybe I'll have to look deeper.
If you want to leave your details, I can reach out and just talk you through that.
Yep. If we've got a presentation, am I allowed to ask another question?
You have to ask the question, but your background information has to be very limited.
If we have a presentation we want to make to council to listen to sort of community sentiment, is this the right place and time, or how do I go about doing that?
Well, it's only public question time. So if you would like to do a presentation, it might pay you to actually ring a couple of the councillors and meet, not in a council meeting time, but we could meet with you and discuss the issue that you've got, and then we can move forward with a plan.
Perfect.
Is that all right?
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Right. Has anybody else from the gallery got a question? Thank you. Say your name and the question about the question you're going to ask.
My name's Andrew Stanley from Rowton, 23 Ennis Avenue. I've got a couple of things here that one is the response to the Kentish Council signed by the General Manager on 18th of March, which I thought was actually 18th of February, about the ecclesia and our bread problem down there where the council sent inspectors around. It says in your reply that the lady who abused you, abused the council, was introduced. So who introduced the lady from the public as a committee member? As it certainly wasn't me or Kelly Peter Senton, the coordinator. It also says in the reply, the coordinator asked for you to come. Which coordinator are you talking about? Because it surely wasn't anyone from Ecclesia or Hungry Shepherd. We used to get half a van load of bread and cakes, around 50 odd meals from Loaves and Fishes. Since then, we've had no meals, no bread, no nothing. We also had a meeting with Loaves and Fishes, where we were told that Kentish Council had rang them, which set all this in place, and said that we had received, they had found meals received from Loaves and Fishes to us with no labels, which is not true. That has never happened. There may have been cooked things on the premises that didn't have labels, never from Loaves and Fishes. So we need to get the facts straight when people are coming and checking these things out, because that's just absolute rubbish. We've never received meals from Loaves and Fishes without labels, so you get your facts straight. On that matter, even Meals on Wheels don't label their ingredients on the meals. And what have we got here? Is going to cause trouble for this great organisation as well, like we've done with Loaves and Fishes. Now we've lost 50% of their bread and cakes throughout the state. That don't pick up, they've changed all their policy now on unlabelled bread because of this. This is directly to do with Kentish Council.
I'm just going to interrupt you there, Mr. Stanley. We have actually heard all this before. You've already presented all those.
Do something about it.
And we've already sent a letter to you. So I'm going to hand over, because I realise that you're not happy with the response you got. So I'm going to hand over to our General Manager, please.
Now, that's another thing too. I even said this to the General Manager after the meeting and talked with this. I've had a meeting previously, and when I've sent letters or emails, I asked to deal with the elected people, not the General Manager, but I keep getting things from General Managers. So I don't understand why.
So that's your question. Why are you not getting response from that?
Mr. Stanley, I did try and contact you last week to.
He's rang and rang and rang. I rang back here and nobody knew who it was ringing. That happened about 3 times.
I had no messages to that effect.
Yeah, well,
But I'm happy to take direct line and even catch up and exchange numbers.
yeah, so the question
so we
with that
can
one though is,
Question, please.
yeah, so how are you going to rectify the damage you've caused with this issue? Or what plan do you have in place from here on in to help Loaves and Fishes, Hungry Shepherd, Ecclesia, Food Outreach, or others like it? You know, because we've lost 50% to food type thing. The only people that actually are helping us is Lee Hanson and Mother Senator Pauline Hanson, which are actually putting things in place and structuring.
Sorry about that.
So where are you using all this? What plan do you got?
Okay, so we've got a question. What plan have we got in place to help Loaves and Fishes, and what the
all of the Loaves and Fishes, Hungry Shepherd, Ecclesia, Food Outreach, anything like that? What have we got in place for these things?
Well, we've noted the question, so we'll take that on notice. Thank you.
So the second question, after the last council meeting, I specifically asked in question time whether there was another section to the meeting, and we respond to what we just talked about actually, which was the bread issue, and which your reply was yes, that's correct. That's why I didn't only ask one question last time round, because I thought there was another section to it at the meeting. So it may have been a misunderstanding, which the meeting went on, shut up shop, was finished. There was no other section to it. So then I approached the mayor and the general manager, which he said, the general manager said, I must have misunderstood. Then the general manager replied, we're only trying to help you. I then said, after the trouble they had caused, I would appreciate if they didn't help. Then the general manager said there is a loophole with the bread issue. I then asked the mayor and general manager to send me the details of the loophole, of which they said they would do. Still haven't received anything. So my question is, what is this loophole you're talking about? And when will we receive the details of the loophole? Do I pass this other rubbish.
I think I can clarify, we didn't talk about loopholes, we talked about other organisations that are actually.
I thought this might happen, and as God is my witness, I call you a liar, sir.
Well, thank you. We won't have those sort of comments.
Well,
Thank you, Mr. Stanley.
as a Christian, you want to get your act together too.
Thank you for we'll respond to those questions. Thank you, Mr. Stanley. Are there any?
Just on the bread issue, how come the Rowan service station can
Mr.
sell bread that
Councillor
haven't got
Blinken.
labels on it?
Councillor Blinken, could you address the meeting through me, please, and not just yell out across the room?
Okay, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
How come a business down at Rowan can sell bread unlabelled without ingredients, but we're picking on a church group that's doing some very solid work down in our community? So that's my question.
Thank you. All right, we'll take it on notice. Thank you, Mr. Stanley. Thank you for your comment, Councillor Blinkhorn. Are there any other questions from the gallery? Then we will move on. Thank you, and take those questions on notice. And we'll now move on to number 10, which is Planning Authority. And we have a recommendation. There's a council is in receipt of an application made under Section 57 of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act, seeking approval for the use and development of 8 accommodation structures, glamping domes and tents at 3759 Cradle Mountain Road, Cradle Mountain. So I need someone to move the recommendation that the report by the Statutory Planning Officer concerning 3759 Cradle Mountain Road visitor accommodation glamping tents be received, and council resolve to approve the application for the proposed visitor accommodation development for 8 glamping tents subject to the following conditions. And there are 21 conditions linked with this application. Could I have someone to move it? Councillor Cassidy and Councillor Dickinson. I'm going to hand it over now to our planning officer, Mr. Newton, and he's going to take us through the application. Thank you, Mr. Newton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, councillors, and good evening, everyone. So the application we've received for 3759 Cradle Mountain Road for the purposes of visitor accommodation, and the applicant seeks to develop 8 glamping tents with associated boardwalk infrastructure and car park. So the subject site is located to the north of the tourism precinct at Cradle Mountain, so to the north of the former airstrip land. Zooming in closer on the aerial, this is the approximate development area that is proposed. So it's a 55 hectare site in total. So obviously a small portion of that is subject to the application. Zooming in on the site plan, we have the proposed access road coming in off Cradle Mountain Road. There have been previous permits for this subject site which have been previously considered by the Planning Authority. I have made notes within the report to the extent of those. The 8 tents are proposed on the northern side of the road with a car park and a service container, storage container on the southern part of the site. The storage container would have, in addition to the general storage, also contain water filtration to service the proposed dome structures. That's some detail there with the water storage and general storage building that's proposed. The domes themselves, which have been described or been classified as tents within the planning permit, because effectively they are a large tent dome-like structure, steel construction with PVC type membrane on the outside is what is proposed. That PVC membrane will be coloured in a dark neutral colour tone to assist it to blend into the environment. So those were some of the elevations. We have the floor plans for the structures as well. The application was received earlier this year, just before the changeover to the state planning scheme. So this application has required to be assessed against the interim planning scheme. It is in the environmental zone, which, as the name suggests, given its location, needs to protect and conserve the management of the environment in that area of Cradle Mountain and to only allow contemporary use or development. To guide council into what development would be considered appropriate and complementary, we have a specific area plans that applies to Cradle Mountain, which provides our local provisions for this specific area, given the significance of Cradle Mountain. It is within the sustainable tourism precinct and it does provide ability for a range of visitor accommodation to be provided within this area, obviously seeking to minimise disturbance to native vegetation, habitat values, landscape, to enhance the visitor experience to the site. There are a number of codes that obviously also apply within this application. Some vegetation is required to be cleared to facilitate the development. There is a natural values assessment provided with the application, and further supplementary information was also sought from the applicant to seek response to representation concerns that were received during exhibition of the application. The vegetation communities highlighted there are what was identified on the planning scheme maps. The yellow is Highland Poa grassland, which is the area that predominantly applies to the development area. There is a small area, Sphagnum peatland, small area which is not identified on this map, but was identified with through further assessment through the natural values assessor on the site. There's also Black Bog Creek, which passes through the site, close proximity as well. Which brings me to go through, I'll come back to the representations, working from bottom to top. In terms of the discretions for this application, obviously the reason why this application is before us this evening. We talked about the creek, so there is development works within use of that watercourse, which requires discretion whether we consider consider the impacts to that watercourse. Mentioned about the vegetation clearance. This is a map that was provided by the natural values assessor, which shows that very small area of that moss area, which was identified during the inspection. There is also illuminated signage proposed, so we have discretion that element to make sure it's not too bright or poses an impact to the environment or motorists passing by. So that's some of the plans associated with the signage there. And site suitability, with because there would be more than 10 people residing on this site at a maximum given point in time, we need to be satisfied that the water supply proposed would be adequate to serve the number of people that would be residing at the site. There were 2 representations received following exhibition of the application. I trust councillors you received copies of those representations prior to this evening. And noting that
I'll just might wait for Mr. Newton to finish his presentation, please.
And noting that so 2 representations were received, copies of which have been provided to you, and comments in relation to the concerns raised have been included with the report. Some site photos for context. I did undertake a site inspection for this site. This shows the access road looking in a northwesterly direction back towards Cradle Mountain Road. The cleared area on the left has been previously disturbed and cleared. This is just to the north of the airstrip. That's the area proposed for the car park. Coming down from that road, this is sort of looking towards the development area. The creek is obviously running through the bottom of the valley, shown in this image. The first 2 glamping domes will be just to the far left of that shot. Looking back directly in the opposite direction towards the water supply area, where there is a, that's where the water supply would be obtained from and piped to the storage structure that was mentioned earlier on. Looking more broadly over the creek, this is where the majority of the accommodation domes would be proposed to be developed. You'll note a lot of the shrubby type vegetation. So the developer has indicated that they wish to nestle these domes in amongst and behind the areas of vegetation to maximise not only privacy but the wilderness aspects for visitors staying at the site. This shows the creek just at the bottom left of the image, and looking to the far right of the image was one of the proposed locations for one of the domes, which shows fairly close in proximity to the creek. Coming back up the hill, this shows looking back more in a westerly direction towards the development area. I would welcome any questions or queries at this point.
Right, thank you very much for your report. Are there any questions or comments from the councillors?
Yes.
Councillor Blenkhorn?
Mr Newton, on the meeting agenda, the representatives aren't on the meeting agenda. Why is that under planning that we don't put the representatives on the meeting agenda?
I believe the reason, Councillor Blenkhorn, as to why individual representations are not included within the public agenda are due to privacy concerns. Perhaps I could further clarity to Mrs Phoebe.
Yeah, through the chair, we have received legal advice in relation to this. The representations are purely provided for the assessment of the application, and the advice was that they shouldn't be included in the open agenda, simply provided to councillors and staff for their assessment of the application.
So, and through the chair, if I may, to add value to that, the Land Use Planning Approvals Act requires us to consider all representations received. So we have to go through and consider the representations received and provide comments in relation to those concerns to the councillors at this planning authority meeting. So that is what is legislated as what we have to do as a planning authority.
Well, I'm at the understanding that other planning authorities make representatives available, like, for instance, the stadium proposal, was going to be opened up for representations, and it would have been open for all and sundry to see. So I'm just wondering why we've got a situation like this. You say that you've sent it to us. I can't find that on any of my emails or anything, the representatives. So, yeah, I'm quite confused, actually. Perhaps you could tell me where it was sent to me.
Councillor Blenkhorn, we do get a copy of the representations, and they are in your docs on tap, and so you can find what the actual representations are, but we don't put them out to public because of what Mrs Phoebe said. It's we're following the Act, and we're also following privacy issues.
So just to get on that then again, so the reason why we're here tonight is because there's been representations against this development. Is that right? That's why we're meeting tonight as a planning authority, because of the representations. Okay, thanks.
Yes, Councillor Blenkhorn, when there are representations, the application needs to come to a council meeting for consideration. Thank you. Councillor Twaits.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Norton, I've got no problems with the planning of it, but I am very concerned about the wastewater issues. We're given an assessment by Geoton for 6 units, not 8, and that sets aside an area for 412 square metres. And from what I can see, that area, it's showed in green, I think it is on the map, but it's a solid colour. You cannot see the vegetation on it. There's but when you look elsewhere on it, there's other trees and things, vegetation on it, other than, say, grass. So my question is, my observation from this is that it's under calculated. The area is calculated for 6 domes, not for 8 domes. The area that is set aside for receiving the water is trees, largely, not not sort of open vegetation. You have to cut all the trees down, I think, to make the system work. And I'm really concerned that the calculations for flow, absorption and everything, are they really taken into account that it is a subalpine environment with low temperatures, freezing? I know frozen pipes was mentioned at one point, but what happens when you're putting, it says 3.5 millimetres a day of water onto that small area? 412 metres, that's like half an ordinary residential block. And you're expecting that block to soak up all of the wastewater from that, these eight glamping domes. I just can't see that the work has been put into convincing us that it's a fair thing. And these people are engineers and all, and I don't know how we can question their advice, because they're the experts. But they've made visible mistakes there, and there's no assuredness from anything I can read on there that it will work.
Good. Thank you for your question and your comments, Councillor Tate. Would you like to respond to that, Mr. Newton?
Yeah, look, certainly. I guess in terms of any expert reports that we receive as part of an application, that is, in terms of wastewater reports, they are referred by Council's Environmental Health Officer. Their referral comments and conditions are included within the permit, so they have reviewed the documentation. Certainly, Geoton, from my experience as a planner, that I've never had any issues in terms of their assessments. They've always been sound, and the level of detail that they do go to is often more extensive than what I've seen for some other consultants. Notwithstanding that, I do note I've had a look at the report further, and I did identify the area that you referred to concerning that wastewater assessment. So in terms of the numbers, visitor accommodation itself is always in flux. You rarely get 100% occupancy 100% of the time. So that's obviously part of the factor with a wastewater assessment. You need to consider not only the maximum volumes, but the actual rates and how much waste is going to be managed at any particular given point in time. Noting your concerns and noting that on the permit, if we have a look at, so there are obviously conditions of approval concerning the wastewater, and that predominantly relates to the pump that requires to transfer it from the lower part of the site to the application area. There are conditions on this permit already requiring some amendments to some of the plans. If councillors were agreeable, an additional condition requiring an amended wastewater report could be sought, requiring confirmation based on the number of domes, and that application area would be sufficient, and also requiring confirmation as to any vegetation that's required to be removed to facilitate that system. My understanding, having been to the site, there are some trees, but it's certainly predominantly clear. It's not heavily wooded or forest or anything like that. It's predominantly clear. So as a planning authority, you do have the discretion to impose additional conditions should you wish to do so. Happy to consider that, happy to draft anything if the planning authority are agreeable to that.
Councillor Thwaites.
I would be agreeable to that, but I should have prefaced it with a just down the road, not very far away, sort of almost an adjoining block to this, is a $16 million sewage treatment plant. When that was installed, it was all places up there in that visitor precinct had to use it. They had to use it. Why is this place different? And, you know, if they would use that treatment plant, it would, you know, and it goes past it. There's a condition there saying they can't get too close to the pipe.
Yeah, so there is a pressurised main which goes through that site, which encapsulates and captures most of the sewage from further south. So a pressurised main is not that I'm an expert on that matter, but a pressurised main, a lot more difficult to feed into that. Obviously, that waste is under pressure to pump it up to the treatment facility. The area on the site has been identified as not being able to connect to TasWater's infrastructure. You'll note within the report the application was referred to TasWater, who advised that they had no conditions in relation to connecting to that infrastructure, only that wastewater system would need to be clear of the easement. Indeed, the consent that TasWater has provided gives permission for them to undertake that work within proximity of the easement. So if there was any ability for that site to connect to the reticulated system, TasWater would require that as per their requirements under their legislation. So it was referred to TasWater. They have confirmed it's not able to connect given the topography and that location of the site.
Okay. But, well, to return to the first bit then, yeah, I would be certainly in favour of stepping up the requirements for the wastewater treatment in that condition.
Right, so does that mean that you would like to put an amendment to the?
Yes.
Okay, so we do have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation. So Councillor Thwaites, what is your amendment?
Don't ask me the exact wording because Mr. Norton put it very well, I thought, but it was along the lines of making greater update the wastewater report to include the right number of units and better explanation of the wastewater management.
Good. So you're moving that as an amendment to the recommendation?
I don't know if I got all that, Madam Mayor, but I'd rely on Mr. Norton to
Newton.
Newton, I beg your pardon. Too many there's north and things in there. Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry, yeah.
Right.
Andrew, did you want to share? It looks like you're drafting something to effect in there.
One sentence, sorry.
I was giving you a moment.
I'm happy to keep drafting to a little bit. Perhaps, Madam Mayor, there were any further questions or queries, happy to do that while
you're doing that amendment. All right, let's go back to the amendment. Thank you, Councillor Lane.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through the chair, I'd like to ask about F1 6.8, which is access and car parking areas. If I was, because I believe this is going to be a very high quality, and the people, if I was booking into that glamping hut, which is number 8, which is the furthest one away and will be, I presume, the most popular one, the walkways are not covered. If it was raining and I had to go to the best one, it's a long way to walk with my baggage and get down there. Was there ever a consideration that they should have some sort of shielding above the walkway? And if they decide to do it later, will then they have to revisit it? And why didn't they think about it first?
It certainly wasn't mentioned within the application. And in my discussions with the applicant and the developer, that didn't come up in conversation. What was repeated quite a fair bit in terms of the development as a whole is in relation to minimising the visual impact within the landscape. The idea being is that the domes would certainly nestle within the wilderness landscape there, and that when any visitors are within one of those domes, that they can't see any of the others around them. So it'd be quite discreet and, further to that wilderness effect. So I imagine that there would be a greater visual impact if each of those walkways had a roof over them. The walkways themselves are the same type of construction as what is used through national parks. So they use that plastic composite top boardwalk material, which obviously has good adhesion. So if there was any ice or frost or whatever, there's a lot more grip with that as opposed to the traditional timber type structures. And to the last point of your question, that if they did decide to do any changes or roof type shelters or such forth, they would need to submit another application, which would be able to consider it. Yeah.
So I could just confirm that in their application, they haven't thought about what happens if it's raining and my guest has to get all the way to number 8 without cover. I suppose they've got a game plan of a great big lovely umbrella, but it seems.
I think that for some people, they might consider that to be part of the experience, councillor.
Maybe. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments about the application? Right, and we might go back to the amendment that councillor Thwaites has tabled. Have you got something you'd like to read out to us, Mr. Newton?
Still right.
So it's based on an update for the wastewater report. Yes.
In the CBOS reference in there, it says, before your system can be installed, an accredited designer will need to complete a design for the wastewater system, including the irrigation area. The design will require approval from the local authority. Would that wording be adequate?
So I guess to remember that as a planning authority, this development application is in simple terms what they're planning to do, where they're planning to put it. The more the plumbing details are managed under the requirements of the Building Act through the plumbing application. So that's at that point where a lot more detail needs to be provided to make sure that the system complies with the Australian standards for wastewater design as well as the plumbing regulations under the Building Act. The planning scheme is primarily concerned with, is the site big enough? Does it have capacity? That is the simple question that the planning scheme answers. In this case, given the environmental sensitivities of the site and given the concerns that you picked up, it's fair and reasonable to seek an amended wastewater report to make sure that the area can still be accommodated within the area identified in the wastewater report assessment, and particularly seeking clarification as to any further vegetation removal that may be required should there be any additional area to be cleared. Note that condition 3 of the permit does require a supplementary natural values assessment to touch on some of the concerns that were raised in the representation concerning the proximity of some of the development to the watercourse.
Right, so do you still want the amendment included?
Yes, Madam Mayor, and that about the quantity and all. I could say from the CBOS info sheet on it, says keep pets and children clear of the wastewater distribution area. And you think, well, there's going to be, all sorts of wildlife going through there. It's an environmental management zone, and even after treatment, bare skin contact by pets and livestock should be avoided. It just makes me query whether it's the right place, the right development.
Right, thank you. So is that going to be included in the amendment as well? And I'm just waiting for Mr. Newton to write down the amendment?
No, that's just.
Just another comment.
I think
Okay. So we're looking at the wastewater report at the moment.
Okay, so what I have drafted at this point is prior to the commencement of the works, an amended wastewater assessment is required to be provided to the Manager of Development Regulatory Services, confirming A, the number of glamping tents being corrected from 6 to 8, B, the wastewater application area to service the proposed use. This is confirming the wastewater development area. And C, confirming any vegetation to be removed to facilitate the wastewater assessment. So to clarify that, A is confirming the number of tents as per the application. B is confirming the application area, i.e. is it still the same as what was originally proposed in the assessment, or does it need to be slightly larger? Seeking confirmation of that. And C, any vegetation to be removed to facilitate that. And that component in terms of the vegetation would then also correlate with the natural values assessment condition that's already within the application.
Okay. Very happy with that, Madam Mayor.
All right, so we do have an amendment that Mr Newton has just explained. So can I have a seconder? Councillor Hughes. Are there any comments about the amendment? Because if it's passed, that becomes the recommendation. Are there any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I'd like to ask the question. Okay, so we've got an environmental and health officer that tests creeks, waterways and rivers, from my understanding, of the water. What sort of report would we be getting up from one of these creeks, for instance, like water quality wise? Like there's so much wildlife up there and the growing numbers of wildlife. There'd be sort of recommendations that you wouldn't even consider drinking the water out of these creeks up there. Would there be no recommendation to stay away from it, like not drink the water?
Well, that's why the development application has proposed a water treatment facility. So the water will be drawn from the spring, which is to the south of the site, treated in the storage structure, which is proposed near the car park, to then service the proposed development.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Glencorn. Are there any more comments or questions about the amendment? Councillor Hughes.
With the I've got a water treatment system for my sewage and that, and all the grey waters and that. And people come around and check it every 3 months, and they have a look at it and they fill out a form, whether they're suitable and all that. And mine's retained in the beds there, and the plants are growing on top. You can't put vegetables on top or anything, grow vegetables. But he did tell me the other day that some people are, using the stock water for stock water and that. It's a big no-no. Yeah. So I can see where Donald's coming from.
Thank you for your comment, Councillor Hughes. All right, if there are no other comments or questions, I will put the amendment to the vote, which will now then become the new recommendation. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. So we do now have a new recommendation, which will include the amendment. And we did have 2 people that recommended that. So we had who were the first 2 that.
Was it me?
I don't know. Mrs. Wilkinson will tell us who moved the first.
It was Councillor Cassidy, and your seconder was Councillor Dickinson.
Yes.
All right. So now we do have a new motion, and so Councillor Cassidy and Councillor Dickinson, are you happy for this now to become the motion and the recommendation? You're happy with that?
Yes.
So I'm going to put it to the vote now. All those in favour? Anyone against? Councillor Thwaites is against.
Still think it's fair.
Good, thank you. So we have 7 for and 1 against. Good. And I would just like to say thank you, Mr. Newton, for all your work in being able to deal with this development application, all the information that you've provided for us, and to be able to work through the issues that Councillor Thwaites was able to bring up. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good. All right. So I'll move that that the council will cease to act as a planning authority. Can I have someone to move that? Councillor Lane, Councillor Cassidy. All those in favour? Anyone against? And that is carried. So now we're up to number 11, which is Development Regulatory Services Department. So I have a recommendation that the report advising of plumbing and building applications and notifications received for the month of April 2025 be received. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Lane and Councillor Richards. Are there any comments? All right, no comments or Councillor Blenkhorn?
Comment under dwellings, total, we keep going back to this rural resource. I'm understanding that the rural resource zone doesn't exist in Kentish anymore. It's either rural zoning or an agricultural zoning. Could I have some?
Could I ask Mrs. Peters to answer that, please?
Yes, through the chair. Look, I would say it's simply a matter that this notation in the report hasn't been updated since the LPS came into effect. So it's basically capturing any dwellings that are built within a rural or living or agricultural zone. It's not a planning zone. It's just for context, I guess, as to the type of areas that dwellings are being constructed.
All right, thank you for that, Mrs. Phoebe. Are there any other questions? All right, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. We have a planning development application status report. So I have a recommendation that the status report of the development applications for the month of April 2025 be received. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Lane, Councillor Hughes. Are there any comments or questions? No comments or questions. Then I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. We have number 12, Officer of the General Manager, Nil, Corporate and Business Services Department. So we have a finance report. The author is Andrew Cock, and we have a recommendation that the financial report for the period ended April 2025 be provided by the team leader finance be received. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Cassidy and Councillor Lane. Right, any comments that you would like to ask from Mr. Cock, or he's not here, but maybe Mr. Parsons is here. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Have you got any comments that you'd like to make about it? No. Okay, then I shall, as there are no comments or questions, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. So we have our credit card policy, and we have a recommendation that the report by the Manager for Corporate and Business Services concerning the credit card policy be received, and the credit card policy as amended is approved by Council. Can I have someone to move that? Councillor Richards and Councillor Thwaites. Now, could I might ask Mr. Parsons if you would like to address this one, please.
So this was an item that we discussed at workshop last month relating to credit cards. Currently, our purchasing system means that we have staff raising purchase orders, matching up invoices and chasing them through the accounting system, which can often outweigh in staff time the value of the transaction. The way in which the corporate credit card policy currently is formed means that we add or remove a credit card to a user, we need to take that credit card, take the policy up as an amendment to both councils. It's a little bit of an outlier in terms of how our other peers deal with their credit card policies. So this amendment will bring us in line with our other peers in basically establishing a credit envelope, I should say, and then leaving it to management to operate in that. I'd stress that it doesn't amend any of our procurement processes or policies or thresholds. So the procurement framework itself is unchanged. It's just a payment method. These credit cards are not interest bearing in the fact that it's a corporate facility, so they pay themselves each month. Each month, full statement is reconciled by the card owner and then goes run up for reconciliation. So their line manager with subject matter expertise will sign off on those. And then there's additional checks and verifications that the finance team then run in the background in terms of the coding and identifying any transactions that need further review. So the policy is marked up there in clean. As you can see, the only change really is in that back table, and everything else remains as is currently in play with credit cards across both councils.
Thank you for the update. Any questions or comments that you would like to ask Mr Parsons?
Yeah, just on the
Councillor Blenkhorn.
policy, yeah, sort of here, the credit limit for the general manager is determined by council approval, including subsequent adjustments. So is that actually is approved by us around the table?
Yeah, so that's included in that draft there. So that's pretty similar with other councils. The CEO's credit card in particular is named up and approved, so a value limit. And then more broadly, we establish a credit limit for council to then distribute to other credit cards in the business.
So when will that be coming to the council for approval?
So that's already marked up there in the schedule. So you have a look at the attachment.
How much is it? How much is it?
Yeah, I'm just checking. It's 10,000, I think.
1,000.
So for context in terms of Jason's card, he gets some added scrutiny. So the monthly report of his credit card transaction goes to both Kate on behalf of Kentish, Peter Greshning on behalf of Latrobe, and then finally comes through to me for approval.
Okay, just another question. How many employees could actually be entitled to have a credit card? Is there a number placed under this at all on this policy? A number of how many staff are allowed to have a credit card?
No.
There's no specific number.
What we are limiting is the total amount of, if you think the credit limit across the entire business, that's the limit you're setting. And then if we wanted to do 2 500 cards or 1,000 card, we'll manage that operationally.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you for your report for for this one, which is the pecuniary interest subject matter with the credit card policy. So we have a recommendation, moved and seconded. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Aye. Anyone against?
I'll vote against.
Right, against. So we have 7 to 1. Thank you. Right, now we go over to page 61 and we have 13.3, which is the revived schedule of fees and charges. And we have a recommendation on page 63. And I will read the recommendation out that the report by the team leader of finance concerning revised schedule of fees and charges for 25-26 be received and that council adopts the proposed schedule of fees and charges with effect from the 1st of July 2025. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Lane and Councillor Cassidy. Right, are there any comments that, well, Mr Parsons here, he might be able to answer any questions that you've got. No questions or comments?
Just a comment. I did pick up there that, like, just for instance, the tip where you'd make probably a charge for a tyre and a rim, had a rim on it, as well as a tyre. How will we go about policing that? Like, have we got people down there that are thoroughly policing some of this stuff, like down at the refuge site?
I might ask Mr Malik to answer that, please.
As they come through the gate, they're meant to be checking. We've got the, we're also just at the moment doing the recruiting for the second person. So there'll always be one person at the gate, so that will be done.
Good. Right, thank you for that, Mr Malik. All right, yes, Mr Councillor Richards.
I was at the World Tip about 6 months ago when the chap came in there and he thought the operator there wasn't looking, so he threw a tyre in the bin, and when he turned around, he actually made the bloke hop in the bin.
Oh, get it out.
Tyre out. And told him not to do it again, so I think they do try and keep.
Try and keep
pretty
everything
good.
within the rules and regulations.
And the bloke done it on purpose too, because he thought he wasn't looking.
Don't get away with it.
We might review the safety protocol of getting people to get into bins.
Yes, that's right. All right. So if there are no more questions or comments, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. Infrastructure and Assets Department, nil. Operations Department, nil. Information. So we have council forums, and the recommendation is that information on topics discussed at the 15th of April and the 6th of May 2025 council forums be received. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Twaits and Councillor Hughes. Are there any comments about the list of topics that we talked about at the forum? All right, then I will put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? And that is carried. We now have the delegates' reports. So we have my delegates' report, and we have Deputy Mayor Lane, her delegate report too. So could I have someone to move that the delegate reports be received and noted? Councillor Cassidy and Councillor Hughes. So I will open it up to any comments. I just noticed in mine that I did attend the Railton Anzac service at 12 o'clock, and it was on the 25th, not the 24th. That's just a typing error. Thank you, because I did the dawn service here, then the town hall, and then went down to Railton for 12 o'clock. So it was a very special day. Any other, Councillor Lane?
Yes, I'm apologising that I have an adjustment on mine on the 7th of May. The WTPA meeting was scheduled, but because we had the Joint Council Values and Behaviours Strategy Workshop, which was very valuable, I will advise that WTPA was bumped to the next Wednesday, which will be in my next. The officer who creates this is very diligent in making me check, but I missed that one and I apologise. So I just like to remind everybody that will not progress. An association meeting was bumped for a week.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Lane. All right, I'll go around the table. Councillor Twaits.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a comment about your activities that didn't actually make it onto this one because it's too recent. I'd just like to commend you on your presentation at the Tasmanian Tiger unveiling. I thought it was excellent, and it was a great little event to be there.
Yeah, it certainly was.
Thank you for all of what you said. Good.
Thank you very much for that. It's nice to have a bit of affirmation, but I'd like to acknowledge Councillor Lane too in her work in trying to get the Tiger up and running and going through proper processes within council. So well done to Councillor Lane.
And I'll also make note that people have already sat on that with pictures.
Yeah, thank you. All right, anyone else got a comment? Councillor Hughes?
I have been got a few here anyway. Anzac Day morning service, I attended that, and also too I carried one of the colourful Australian flag in this march down to the Cenotaph. The next one was the Tasmanian Governor, Barbara Baker, and Professor Don Chalmers. That came to the Kentish Mean Shed for luncheon. It was supplied by the Limestone Cafe, and it was a good there. There was a bit of a fun there, and because she was presented with a poker and that, and she knew how to use it too. On the husband. I went to the civic reception for Her Excellency Barbara Baker at the town hall, and a lot of comments about it. She's a wonderful woman and that, and it's very open. Normally they're pretty well to the T. The other one is a Lower Barrington community meeting. There was a nice roll up down there, so that was pretty good. The next one was a joint council values and behaviours strategy workshop at La Trobe. And tomorrow we got a meeting with the men's shed and plus myself. I'm meeting with Jeremy Rocklet and Steve Parry at the men's shed. they'll be having a bit of a morning tea and a coffee there and speak to the members as well. And I did go to the Tiger opening and that, and Councillor Lane, she got the raw end of the Tiger.
It was very good. Thank you for your report, and it's nice to see you out and about and representing council at a lot of these functions, so thank you for that. Has anybody else got a delegate's report? Councillor Richards?
Yeah, so the night of the civic reception, the Wilmot Hall held a meeting, and it was mainly to discuss running the trivia night last Saturday night, which was well attended, and thank our mayor and ex-mayor for their wonderful support in doing the scorecard with our mayor and our ex-mayor reading the questions. Also attended the workshop at Latrobe, which I thought was very good workshop, to be honest. You know, when we sat around in the groups and come up with some thoughts on it, I thought that was, you know, really good. So I enjoyed that. Yeah, and I think that's about all that I've got to report. Oh, I'd just also like to thank our deputy mayor for stepping in on Anzac Day to do the address at the last moment. So I'd really like to thank Penny for that.
So
Just to
good.
come across and do that. She's done a wonderful job. So.
Thank you for that, Councillor Richards. Councillor Twaits?
Thank you. Just to catch up for Mount Roland Land Care, they finished their autumn tree planting last Saturday with another 220 trees, and so they're more than halfway through the annual number of around 2,000, and they also had a training session which I attended yesterday morning by Jodie Goff, partner of Dave Goff from Six Rivers, and Jodie's a psychologist and a trainer, and it was on the accidental counsellor was the name of it, and that was funded also through the Department of Health, and very good. And I would recommend similar organisations to do that sort of course. And yeah, another example of the land care group is out doing things. I'd like to thank Michael Loat and Steve Ash and Sam Blackwood Beattie, who came out and had a look at the crayfish culvert on the Paradise Road. That was also yesterday, and yeah, it's great to be making some headway on being able to, you know, get some research and some understanding into what we've got to do with our culverts to let the wildlife through. So, well done. Thank you.
Thank you for your detailed report, Councillor Twaits. Is there anybody else that would like to comment in their delegate report? If not, we do have a mover and a seconder, so I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. So we have the council decision status report, that the April 2025 status report of open council meeting decisions be received. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Hughes and Councillor Lane. All right, I'll ask anybody if you've got any comments or questions in regard to the status report. No comments there, then I will put it to the vote. All those in favour? Aye. Anyone against? And that is carried. We have 16.4, have a recommendation that the notes of the Wilmot Community Information Evening held on the 10th of April 2025 be received. So could I have someone to move that? Councillor Hughes, Councillor Richards. Are there any comments or questions about the Wilmot Community Information Centre? I would just like to thank those councillors that came up to Wilmot. It's a bit of a hike, but I really appreciate the fact that you do come up there. It's nice for the Wilmot community to know that they do have the support of the councillors up there. So thank you for those that attended. Any comments or questions? All right, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? And that is carried. 17 committees of council nil, 18, Council Joint Authorities, other committees, nil, urgent business, nil, and closed meeting. We have a recommendation that the following items be discussed in closed session, and we have a list of 5 items there. So could I have someone to move that Councillor Cassidy and Councillor Lane? Any questions about that? Then I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. So this concludes our open session of the May Council meeting. Thank you very much for your contribution to the meeting.